this week, a patient was telling me a story about how she really wanted this chocolate cake. Now, it was a particular kind of chocolate cake that she wanted. And I know as soon as she said chocolate cake, I envisioned the chocolate cake that I love. There's not very many of them. There's one, and when I want it, that's the only one that'll just make me go, oh. Anyways, so she didn't get that cake. She decided instead of having the whole cake around, she was just going to get a cupcake. So they went, they got a cupcake, and she took a bite, and she said, Carrie, it wasn't the same. And I said, well, what'd you do? She said, well, I finished the cupcake. Now, there was a whole lot of conversation about why she finished that cupcake, and part of it was this not wanting to throw food out and be wasteful, and so there's a whole other video in that. This video I wanted to talk about, though, was this concept of pleasure foods. Now, this has happened a lot in Facebook recently, especially around children, and how do you talk about food without making it good or bad or junk and healthy or clean, and no one ever calls their food dirty, but anyways, how can we do this? And what we have chosen in our house is pleasure foods. And here's the basic concept of this. There are foods that we eat purely for pleasure. They're not nutritionally sound in the sense that we're getting a whole bunch of nutrients from it. It is entirely for the taste buds and the experience, and maybe it's the environment, maybe it's a memory, a connection, but it is purely pleasure. So if you're going to consume pleasure foods like this woman, then I hope it's really pleasurable. So what happened was this woman was trying to consume a pleasure food, and she didn't actually get any pleasure out of it, which defeats the purpose, right? So much of our food is meant to nourish us, and not just in our body, but definitely in our satisfaction and our soul. It's supposed to feel good. This poor woman didn't get to feel good about it. So then I shared my story. So my son has a lot of food sensitivities, and when we find a gluten-free bakery, I always walk in, and this is what happened. I walked in and I said, I want one of everything. And he thought I was kidding, but I really wasn't. So we got a loaf of bread, and we got some buns, and we got one of every kind of cupcake and tart they had. I didn't buy any actual cakes, but I did buy slices of cake. And we got cookies, and I spent, I think, just over $50 at this bakery. And what we did was we brought it together, we each grabbed a fork, and we took a bite of everything that was on the plate. Now, do you feel any anxiety happening just thinking about this? There was a time in my life when that would have been impossible, because just like my patient, I would have felt the need to eat it all. What we were searching for, though, was what is pleasurable from that bakery. Now, we've learned that different things are really well done at different bakeries. So we'll buy cookies at one place, we buy bread at another, we get cupcakes from another, because they're amazing. And if you've ever done the gluten-free thing, not everything's, some of it is so bad. These people made the best bread ever. Amazing, yes. And their buns, phenomenal. They had this one cookie that was out of this world. And their carrot cake, 2 thumbs up. The rest of it was not very good. So we each had a bite, we looked at each other and we went, not very good. And what we ended up doing was throwing out the rest. Now again, notice your feelings right now. What's happening for you? Are you going, she threw it out, $50? Or are you going, yeah, well, just notice. This I do with my son on a regular basis, because I really want to drive home the idea that pleasure foods are to be pleasurable. They're not just to be eaten because they're there, or because they're forbidden, or because they're sometimes, or because they're whatever. They're pleasure foods. What food really lights you up and makes you go, oh yes, that was perfect? And here's the caveat to that. I would never sit down to a plate like that when I am ravenously hungry. I cannot emphasize this enough, because this is often what people do in this journey. They go, no rules, I'm eating whatever I want. And then what do? Well, they wait till they're starving and they go, well, cookies are allowed, and they'll eat the whole bag. And then it reinforces this idea that they're either addicted to cookies or that they have no self-control where food is concerned. It doesn't build any kind of trust. When you're really hungry, a meal is the right choice. Now, could you have cookies at that meal? Of course, incorporate that food into what it is you'd like. Having it on its own though, when you're ravenously hungry, is not going to be helpful. So that's not what I was teaching my son. It wasn't to sit down and binge out on all this food. It was, let's taste and explore and experience this food and see how that goes. And what turned out is we found 4 things we really like from that bakery, and that we will go back for. The rest, we don't ever need to buy again. That to me gives 2 things. One, it's food freedom at its finest, in my opinion, because we were able to really experiment and explore and it'd be super fun. And the second thing was passing along a new word, a new concept. There isn't junk food, bad food, sometimes food, play food. Play food could work. I'd be okay with using play food. But pleasure food to me really encompasses what message I'm trying to get through to him, is that all food is allowed. Please make sure you enjoy it. And notice, does it just make you go, oh? Or is it kind of meh? And if it's kind of meh, you're not getting nutrition from it. Your body isn't being nourished in that way. So why not make sure that it's phenomenal? And I think that's about it. That sums up that whole experience. If I haven't answered a question and this conversation has sparked stuff for you, please leave a comment down below and I promise I will answer it for you. Because I think this is a topic that a lot of parents struggle with. They don't know how to create a healthy relationship with their children. And they often say to me, what, you have no food rules? Well, of course, we have guidelines in our house. There are certain things that we implement, and this is one of them. And over a few videos, I will share some of those other nuances of how we incorporate healthy nutrition and peaceful food freedom.